Welcome into the Coaching Clubhouse with Adrian Last.
The coffee's brewing, those little biscuits that we all love are ready to eat. So we must be in the Coaching Clubhouse for another podcast episode about the ever fascinating world of coaching. And my special guest today, I'm delighted to have, I've been trying to get him for a while. It's Matt Scarff, an ICF-ACC qualified coach who is also managing director at BAFTA Alberts and executive sponsor of BAFTA's internal LGBTQI+ queer network. Matt has a long and successful career in media and entertainment, leading teams at ITV, BBC, Sky, UK TV, and many others. Welcome, Matt.
Hi, Adrian. Nice to see you.
What an intro! What an amazing amount of credits you have.
You know what? It's a bit like This Is Your Life, but the sort of cultural references I have from my childhood no longer resonate with the teams I lead because I'm so old.
This happens to us all.
I know. No, it's good to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And I'm sorry it's taken so long to get onto this podcast. I've been a busy boy.
You're a busy man. Well, come on to the coaching in a minute, Matt. But I just wanted to start with a question about you and your role at BAFTA Albert, because it is a very important mission for the media industry. How did you land the job, and what does your day-to-day look like there?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because not everyone knows what Albert is if they're outside of the TV or film industry. You actually see it most days if you're living in the UK at the end of program title sequences. And so when you see the sort of the ITV blocks or the ITV or the BBC blocks at the end of an end credits, you'll see possibly an Albert logo. And that Albert logo means that the production has gone through a process to reduce the carbon footprint of making that program, making that show. And Albert's been around for about 14 years. And it started out as a BBC project. And that BBC project was so successful, and the BBC producers that put that together felt it had such an important role to play that they gifted it to BAFTA. And BAFTA now runs it on behalf of the industry. And I'm really proud to lead the BAFTA Albert team as managing director. So I joined about a year and a half ago, formerly at ITV, which is how we know each other, Adrian, as you know. All of the experiences I've had in all of those organizations you've listed have really helped me in the job I do today.
And clearly communication and leadership are really important in your role. They're important in any of the roles that I'm sure you've had over the years. How did this set you up for becoming a coach? Why did you want to become a coach? When did that thing first sort of cross your mind?
Yeah, I actually didn't know what coaching was until I was at Sky. I was working at Sky as head of creative. I think it must have been about 2011, 2012. And Sky had an incredible training program for leaders. And the program I was on was called Sky Podium. And it was about essentially accelerating leadership throughout the organization. And one of the things that we did was we were all assigned coaches. And there was a magic moment where I met my coach. Her name's Nikki. We're still really good friends today. But Nikki introduced me to the world of coaching. And I was quite skeptical. And then I spent a week with Nikki and I was like, oh my God, it's like a superpower. So I was engaged from the moment that Nikki pretty much opened her mouth and made me realize that there was so much more to Matt Scarff than I actually realized myself, and opened up a whole world of opportunity. And also when I fell into those spaces of self-doubt and insecurity, that I had sort of techniques and strategies to be able to pull myself out.
Yeah.
So it was a really valuable experience. And I suppose the connection then was that I felt that you needed to be really sort of experienced and qualified in coaching to be a coach, but you all have to start somewhere. So I think my journey probably started in 2012. And all the time, those coaching skills I've been developing and enhancing throughout my career. I've always had the opportunity of working with great people, great teams, with great leaders that I can learn from. And I suppose I've been bit by bit adding to my day-to-day way of working and trying to be the best person I can be, the best manager, the best leader, but also just the best colleague. And I think all of that has gone into the melting pot. And there was a eureka moment when I was at ITV, and it was probably in the COVID sort of space, right? So there was a lot of time to think and reflect. And I asked my boss at the time whether or not ITV would support me in my journey to become a coach. And they were, we think this is a great idea. We think you're absolutely brilliant at people management and you understand people. So yeah, we'll absolutely support it. And that was incredible because, you know, it's not cheap becoming a coach. It's, you know, it's an investment.
Yeah.
So ITV sort of supported me on that journey, and I qualified as a coach at the end of 2022 with the ICF.
What was interesting there, amongst many things, Matt, was you were saying about understanding people. Do you think that's critical for being a coach?
I think you've got to want to like and have an interest in people, and I do have that. I'm always fascinated by people's journeys, life experiences, cultural backgrounds. You know, my background is I was born in Hong Kong, right? So I wasn't born in the UK. I was born in Hong Kong to parents that were in the civil service, and came back to England, was a bit of a fish out of water, didn't really sort of, I was young anyway, but it's sort of like all I knew was there was a cultural reference point of Hong Kong that my parents always talked about. And then sort of a few years later, I realized I was gay, and there was a number of things going on in my head where I just thought, I sort of like, am I normal? You know, how does all this work? So I think I've always felt that I was quite a complex character, and that's probably not just me. There are other people out there that are as complex.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we're human beings, right? And we just want to be looked after, cared for, loved, and supported.
A lot of which is in coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing about coaching is that when you're working with a client and you can see that sort of transition from the sort of moment that they realize, oh my God, right, I can do this, or I've just realized that this has happened, or you've highlighted an area that I wasn't sort of aware of, and now I can see what I'm doing wrong. Those moments are like, they're huge. They are huge. And most of the time they're so small that it's hard to realize there was an issue in the first place.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of coaching. It's just shining a light.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, one of the things about coaching, and you probably found the same before you sort of professionally qualified, if you want to call it that, is coaching skills really help when you're leading and managing people. I mean, you talked about all the teams that you've led and managed over the years. How do you think coaching plays a part now in the day-to-day with leading and managing teams? Because there's a lot of talk about it. It's absolutely a trend.
Yeah, I was, you know, sort of thinking about this over the last couple of weeks because somebody asked me a similar question. And what I've realized is that I was making it really hard work for myself managing teams because I was trying to provide everyone with the answers that they needed to probably find themselves. And so you sort of, as a manager of a team, high performing team in an organization like ITV or Sky, or even BAFTA, you're working at pace, right? And you're usually working to a deadline or a transmission deadline or an award ceremony. And actually, with coaching, the brilliance of coaching, and you know this, the brilliance of coaching is that you're not providing the answers, you're pulling the answers from your clients or from your teams if you're coaching your team. So I don't have to give an answer to every problem. I can coach that person, that individual, that group of people, that team, to try to find the answer themselves.
Yeah.
So I'm not exhausted at the end of every day thinking, my God, I am still exhausted, don't get me wrong. It's like, there's a lot going on, but I'm not having to answer all the problems. And then the ownership becomes part of their day-to-day, which means that they're more engaged.
Yeah. It's hard though, isn't it? Because the pace of most jobs now means that time is limited. We're all time poor. So as Matt, particularly when you're a more junior manager, you do get into that habit. Well, it's just quicker to tell you the answer I know the answer, I'll tell you the answer.
Yeah.
But in the medium to long term, that isn't the benefit.
It doesn't work because it doesn't stick, and also you're not then supporting that person's growth.
Yeah.
Because actually, holding them back by providing them with the answers isn't allowing them to flourish, and their answers may be genius, right? And so yeah, I would always encourage, sort of like from the most junior member of the team to the senior member of the team, to try to pull the answers out from them. And sometimes it is as simple as unlocking it with a simple question. Sometimes it's harder, sometimes it's just not, sometimes it is confusing. And there is this flip, isn't there? I think you probably know this, Adrian, the mentor versus the coach. When to apply mentoring and when to apply coaching. And you've said it, at times we're time poor, and sometimes you just need an answer pretty quickly, especially when there's a deadline approaching. So yeah, it's knowing when to strike the right balance.
And for people that are listening who have never done coaching before, I mean, one of the things that I get asked as a coach quite often is what I describe as mentoring. And I know that some coaches, even the ICF, probably have quite a strict definition between actually what coaching is and what mentoring is, and the two have to kind of remain quite separate. What's your view on that?
Yeah, it's a big part of the ICF training, and as an ICF coach, I am there to coach. I'm not there to mentor.
Yeah.
Now I've qualified, I'm able to sit with my clients and I'm able to talk to them honestly about coaching. But if they ask for mentoring, I'm able to just highlight the fact that I'm switching out of coaching mode and I'm going into mentoring mode, just so they can clearly see the difference.
Yeah.
The easiest way of explaining it, and how I was taught, was with coaching, you're pulling, I've already mentioned it, but you're pulling the information from that client or from that individual. And with mentoring, you're sort of pushing, against or pushing on to, for them to come up with plans, but you're sort of giving them sort of clues and head starts. I think the thing about coaching is it's so rewarding when they find that answer themselves. And then they can go on and deliver it. And because they then start talking about it and they're really proud of it. So yeah, that's the sort of clear definition, and the ICF are very clear that coaching is coaching, mentoring is mentoring.
Yeah.
But as coaches, ultimately our clients are paying for our services, and if there's an opportunity to mentor and they've asked for it, then I'm really happy to slip into that.
Yeah. I share a very similar view, and I love actually the way you've described it there. The kind of pulling of coaching and the pushing of mentoring. It works perfectly.
Yeah, I did as part of my training. So I did I think it was 18-month program in the mastery of coaching and mentoring with brilliant coach, Sally Jackson. She's based in Malta. There's a lot of distance learning, but I managed to go over to Malta with a group of us coaches who were training at the same time. And Adrian, it was the first time I think I'd literally written an essay since my GCSEs. I mean, I did do A levels, but they weren't brilliant. We don't really talk about that, but my GCSEs, and I sort of loved it, and I didn't realize how much I loved learning. And that's the other thing I think that coaching has helped me with. It's just realizing that there is all this potential that sometimes we just ignore, or we think we're not good at, and we avoid it. And coaching has given me a sort of a zest for learning again, and enjoyment of learning new things.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Good to hear. Now, you describe your coaching as creative coaching. Naturally, you're working with coaches who have presumably got a range of challenges or goals that they want to achieve. We've already talked about leaders and managers and trying to get people into this coaching way of leading and managing. But what are the other kind of common themes that you're seeing with your coaching clients at the moment?
Yeah, creative coaching is sort of my tagline, and I've done that for a number of reasons actually. And one of the things that I tried to do when I first sort of qualified was talk to a number of coaches that were already out there. And Tracy Forsyth is an incredible coach. I don't know whether you know Tracy, but Tracy works at UKTV when I was at UKTV, and she works with the media industry now. And one of the things I asked her was, do I go niche, or am I more generalist? And she said, my God, Matt, you've got two really incredible things going for you. You're creative and you've worked in the creative industries for so long that actually, why would you avoid it? And you're gay, right? And you've got the whole LGBT community that potentially might want to work with you. She said, I can't market that. That's your thing, right? So think about the stuff that you want to do. So I was thinking, am I going to be the gay coach? Am I going to be? And I just thought, what? I want to be something for everyone. I don't want to be so niche that no one that isn't gay doesn't come to me. But it really helps, and actually reputationally, because my name's known in the industry because I've been in the industry for over 30 years. I know it doesn't look like it, Adrian.
It doesn't look like it, Matt.
Sorry,
it was a bit slow there coming through with that.
I know. Thank you. But actually, it's really helped. And the creative coaching, it's fun to be in a relationship as a client of mine because I sort of approach it in a creative way. It's not scary. Going back to your question, which was about sort of what's coming through, I think probably typical traits most coaches are getting, which are imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Lots of people have been going through redundancy in the media sector in the last couple of years. Lots of people, at previous organizations I've worked at, and they know me as a coach and, have approached me as well to sort of help. But also things like mothers coming back from maternity leave, feeling really out of sync with the world of working in an organization because they've had time out, important time out, but sort of having to get back into that slipstream. And also it's just a number of people come to me with sort of confidence issues, or have lost their way or their mojo.
Yeah.
And one of the things I think probably resonates with me really well is, and I think a lot of people know this, that I was at ITV for about 9 years. And I realized that towards the end of my time, I was ready to move on.
Yeah.
But I didn't quite know how. And actually the coaching, the training, the sort of realization that, hey, I could do something different. Is it going to be full-time coaching? Don't know. Is it going to be a mixture of coaching and working at an organization like BAFTA? Yeah, it's working for me. I think it resonates, and a number of my clients can see that that's possible.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just reminding people what their skills are because they forget.
It's really interesting. Well, just staying on, you mentioned redundancy there, and it's something that I've spoken with other podcast guests about, and some very good perspectives, which has got some good feedback actually from people that listen to this. What's your perspective on redundancy? I mean, we both work in the media and entertainment industry. It's been really savage the last couple of years in particular. What's your perspective? How can coaching support people that are either about to go through that or are already redundant and having to deal with that?
Yeah, I think it's always a shock. I've been made redundant twice in my career. Once at ITV back in 1998.
You don't look old enough, Matt.
Thank you.
Quick.
Well done. That's good. Yeah. And also I was made redundant at Sky. And both were shocks. And both were shocks partly because my father, he was a civil servant and he had a job for life pretty much. So actually hearing about redundancy was almost it's sort of like a dirty word. That's not the case anymore. And it's certainly not the case in the industry we work in and the media industry, but I think it's still a shock. And I think that you just need, as if you are being made redundant or you're going through that, or you think you might be, is understanding that you will go through the change curve. There is the grief that comes with it. There's the shock, there's the grief, there's the acceptance, and there's the moving on. And I think coaching is often given as part of a redundancy package. If you're with an organization, like Sky, for example, I know that because it was offered to me. Take it if it's being offered, because you never know who you're going to connect with, but also that connects you with other people in the industry. And there's usually really good tips that they can offer to help you, even if it's like CV writing, sort of basic hygiene around LinkedIn profiles, what to do, what not to do. All of this sort of would really sort of helps. But I think there's no denying that when you leave an organization, I think part of your identity is left behind as well. And I chose to leave ITV the most recent time, sort of like in 2022, it was my decision. But actually, I wasn't prepared for the fact that I was no longer the director of ITV Creative and Media. I was like, I felt literally, I've said this before, but I felt like I was Superman that went in and had all of his powers taken away from him. And then he was a human being. But I couldn't fly anymore. But it's so not true. There's everything is still there. It's just you have to access it in a slightly different way. And that's where coaching can really help, because it's reminding you of all the skills and all the brilliant things that you've got inside you that you can apply to the next job. And it's great to have a spring clean on your employment. I'm not joking, right? You know, I didn't think I'd ever be working at BAFTA, but I'm working in a great organization that is known the world over, that has a relationship with film and TV and games. And I'm also helping to save the planet, or trying to anyway, leading a sustainability business for BAFTA with an incredible team. So those doors, as much as they may feel closed and slightly scary, you know, what's going on behind them, can have great opportunities too.
That's a lovely perspective.
Is it too nice? I mean, it feels a bit too picture perfect, but I think I've also had like really dark times where just thinking, you know, am I going to work again? Is what I'm doing the right thing? Should I have left ITV? You know, now I'm sort of, I'm quite comfortable with it, right? But there were times where I was just thinking, oh my God, how am I going to survive?
Yeah. Well, it's a brave decision to make, isn't it? When you've been in an organization for a number of years, you've got a successful career, and, you know, choosing to not be part of that anymore is a very brave and difficult decision to make, I'd imagine.
I was called stupid. My dad called me stupid.
Really?
But then look at him now, right? It's like, you know, I'm sort of saying, but Dad, this is great. This wouldn't have happened had I not decided to leave, or it would have happened but a slightly different way. Yeah.
Just moving on, I liked what you said about people sometimes lose their mojo and need to come into coaching to try and find that again. I mean, for people that are obviously still in roles and need to find their mojo again, or perhaps, I mean, I tend to find quite a lot of coaches coming to me looking for support with, I'm a bit stuck. How do I get to the next level? How do I get that promotion? What's your sort of, I suppose your perspective on that? What stories have you heard from coaches?
Yeah, I think the mojo thing is quite interesting, because it could be a number of reasons, and it's not always about work. There could be other stuff going on in your life that's impacting. And so a lot of my coaching, and I'm sure this goes for any coach, Adrian, as you know, is that it's peeling back the layers of the onion, or however you want to describe it. And actually, you know, often, you know, the presenting problem is not actually the problem. So spending time with my clients and really trying to get a sense of the whole picture often gives me the clues that I can then start to interrogate, which sounds a little bit brutal, but this is expensive stuff, right? People pay to be coached, and they want to be coached fast, effectively, and, you know, and given, you know, I suppose the right tools to be able to design what they need next. Because, you know, as coaches, we're not designing their lives, our clients' lives, they're doing it themselves, but we're giving them the tools. So I suppose with sort of the mojo point, which is really good, it's like, why are you feeling that way? You know, start to think about that. I mean, work with a coach, because that's ideal, but, you know, why are you feeling that way? You know, it may be that, you know, I know a couple of meetings haven't run brilliantly, and actually just feeling down about that. It may be time of the year, right? It may be the fact that 16 people have been made redundant in the next team, and actually that has a massive impact on you. Obvious things that make your mojo affect your mojo. But I think if it's deeper than that, sometimes you have to think bigger. And I think, you know, I can only talk about myself here, because I'm not going to talk about my clients, but, you know, I think I lost my mojo, you know, a couple of years before I left ITV, and I was exhausted from COVID, right? Having to keep the teams running through that period was incredibly stressful. I don't think I paid attention enough to what was going on with my own mental health. And had I sort of stepped back and thought, crikey, what's going on here? And somebody just said, actually, do you know what? You probably just need to take a break. And I'm not saying that ITV didn't do that, because I'm sure they did in their own way, but I wasn't listening. I was just carrying on. So I think just listen to what your body's saying and reflect. And actually, if things aren't working, then there are ways, there are ways to do things in different ways. But mine was quite extreme by leaving. But I felt I needed to do something, and in coaching there's cause and effect, and I just thought, I'm in control here. I can make the change, so I need to grab the effect and make this happen.
Yeah, sure. It's quite interesting the what you were talking about in terms of not listening to a certain extent. I don't know. I'm finding this thing. I keep reading things on LinkedIn about this, as well as chatting to people. I don't know if it's a COVID thing, or whether it's just the pace of life and the pace of a lot of jobs now. But there's this discussion about people feeling frazzled, feeling a bit kind of burnt out. It's relentless, and it starts coming through in some of the coaching sessions as well. I mean, what's your experience of that?
Yeah, I think that we are always on, aren't we? I mean, we are just always on, whether it be electronic devices, whether it be Zoom calls, whether it be traveling to the office, not working certain days. So much disruption has happened, to sort of what was a normal sort of working in the office Monday to Friday. You're always seeing people. Maybe Fridays we're working from home, but even that was rare. So suddenly it's sort of totally different way of working now. But I think that we are, and we have to take our own personal responsibility for sort of a lot of this. And so for me, I know that when I'm getting to the point where I'm probably getting probably at peak, then I've got to do a couple of things. One of them is step right back and think about what's going on here, because I need some time for myself. I need to either go walking, I need to either go swimming, running, but I need to come off my devices. Easier said than done, but ultimately you're in control. And I also think it's about, for me, it's about knowing when I'm overloaded and I need to speak to someone about it. So, whether it be my boss, or whether it be my HR people director, whether it be my team, actually, and just saying, what, I'm really struggling this week. There's a lot going on. I don't think I can do all of these meetings. I need to put a bit of a break in. I think it's fine, right? I think it's fine to do that.
Yeah. We've more or less run out of time. I can't believe I know, it's crazy, isn't it? It feels like we've just got started. For people that are listening who will undoubtedly want to find out more about you, Matt, and how to get in contact, how do they find out more?
Well, there's always LinkedIn. I'm an avid LinkedIner. I'm always on there because I'm always really obviously talking about the work that we're doing at BAFTA Albert and helping to save the planet. I've also got my coaching website, so mattscarffcoaching.com, which will take you straight there, and you can see a bunch of testimonials. You can sort of see my background, understand, sort of essentially what my approach to coaching is. I'm on every other. I say I'm on every other social media. I'm not on every other social media, Adrian. I'm quite selective. I'm not going to name names.
TikTok.
No, I don't do TikTok.
No.
I mean, my nephews and niece try to get me into Snapchat, but other than making my head turn into a piece of broccoli, I didn't really see what else it was for.
No, just swiping, I think. Thank you so much for joining me today, Matt. As ever, it is always a pleasure to spend time with you.
Oh, thanks, Adrian, and good luck with the rest of the podcast.
Thanks very much. And that's it for this month's visit to the Coaching Clubhouse. Thanks again to Matt Scarff for joining me today. I will be back very soon with another edition of this podcast series. Remember, you can check out previous episodes wherever you get your podcasts and hit subscribe to be notified about future episodes. Thanks for listening and see you very soon.
The Coaching Clubhouse is produced by Adrian Last Coaching. Discover more on the website at adrianlast.co.uk.